and I felt so high. I was seriously sitting here asking myself, am I okay? Then the vision started. I was having visions. I was having shamanic visions. Hi, lovelings. I've decided to just talk to the camera. Originally, when I started this fast, the vision was to make like a documentary about it, but I don't know, maybe one day. For now, let's just talk about this 40-day fast that I did. I've been very open recently about how I want to start a church specifically about Jesus's teachings on physical immortality. Now, physical immortality is very related to the concept of the light body, the concept of breatharianism, basically entering a pranic state and perfecting the physical body. So because I want to start a church, and when you read the story of Jesus Christ chronologically, you'll see that before he started his ministry of teaching people and healing people, he fasted in the desert for 40 days. Now his was a serious fast. It's implied that he was not eating at all. He may not have been drinking. This may have been a dry fast. And only then was he then fit to carry out the purpose he came for. That's a huge detail we don't talk about in the Christian world. Can you imagine how different the church would be if everyone who wanted to start a church had to fast for 40 days first before they did it? I don't know many pastors who fast ever. Even though Jesus said in the Gospels, when you fast, as though it was an absolute expectation, perhaps even a requirement of people pursuing Christ-likeness or Christendom, whatever you might think that Christianity is about. I think it's about immortality. To each their own. So basically I decided I wanted to do a fast. I don't feel ready to do a 40-day dry fast. That for sure is in my future, but the way events lined up was such that I had multiple people around the same time, mid-November, ask me this same question. Well, Allison, what is death? What is death? You keep telling people we don't have to die, we can be immortal. Well, then what is death? How do you define it? So I was like, you know what? I thought it was a given, but I guess not. I guess I could revisit what I think death is before I go telling people we don't have to die, right? So that question was planted like a seed in my mind, and I had the idea to fast from death for 40 days. Anything that had to die, I could not eat. No vegetables that had to die, no root vegetables, because you have to uproot the whole plant and kill it, end its life, in order to eat it. So no root vegetables, no annual vegetables, no animals, obviously. So the process of figuring out what I could and could not eat on this fast was so illuminating in and of itself. Like, the fast hadn't even started yet, and I was already having massive, major breakthroughs about how do you say this? How immersed I was in the death current, and I didn't even know it. I had never stopped and asked myself before, of all the things I eat on a typical day, how many of these things died for me? How much death do I cause to sustain my own life? And do I have to? We all kind of take for granted that, like, life needs death, but what I'm learning on this immortalist path and through moving towards the pranic state is that what we think of as a life-death cycle is an illusion. Life is not sustained by death. Life comes from God. And God does not have to destroy to create. God can create without anything else having to be harmed or taken out of existence. You know what? I'm going to do my best to save all of these bigger ideas for the Church of Immortality sermons I'm going to start doing. Let's get back to the task at hand. So before I started the fast, I did basically a Google search of every food I could think of, trying to figure out, is this thing a living thing, and does it have to die for me to then eat it? I'll save you the long story. Basically, there were some things that were essentially pretty hard to define, but for sure, fruits and nuts that come from trees were absolutely okay. Seeds, legumes, grains were a little more complicated because theoretically, you can harvest these things without killing the whole plant. But in modern agriculture, there is such an unconscious just mass killing that happens in the harvesting process, because I guess collectively we value efficiency and mass production more than we value life. So these things that don't have to die to be eaten do end up getting killed kind of just in this blasé fashion. And of course there was no mitigating the incidental deaths, like in the harvesting process were field mice scooped up into like the harvesting processing machine. So for the sake of not going insane, I decided upon the following terms for this fast. I could eat an unlimited amount of fruits and nuts. I could theoretically eat eggs and dairy, and that is questionable because you don't have to kill a chicken to create an egg, but in modern agriculture, again, there is such an unconsciousness around the value of life that a male chick, because it can't produce eggs, is usually killed because they're not profitable, and there's no incentive for the industry to keep all these male chicks alive when you can't make money off of them, right? So in theory, eggs and dairy don't die. They don't carry the death current, but the process of bringing them to the grocery store does indeed cause death. So I decided eggs and dairy would be on the table, but I did my best to avoid that the whole time. And then finally, grains and rice and such were also on the table, but again, I was going to do my best to just avoid having to deal with them at all because of the incidental death of the plant in production. No yeast, no yogurt or anything involving cultures, and no mushrooms, because mushrooms entirely feed on decaying, rotting, dying, dead things. And without death, there would be no mushrooms. You ever thought about that? Mushrooms are so fucking sus. I don't care what anybody says, they are not giving you enlightenment. Stop taking mushrooms. Anyway, okay. Day 1, I was so fucking high. I was so high. I pulled into the Trader Joe's parking lot and I was literally like this. This is just day 1. I was like, because what was happening was I suddenly had this heightened awareness of my crown area. Around my head, I just felt this openness and intensity of energy being processed around here. And suddenly the whole world looked so luminous. Literally, light looked brighter. I could feel the luminosity in the world around me in a way I'd never felt it before. Like, the world just seemed so full of light. And I felt so high. I was seriously sitting here asking myself, am I okay? Is this normal? Is this healthy? Should I be concerned? And like, even just that taught me so much about how how unfamiliar we are with raw life force. Like, life feels like that. It is pure energy. It is pure light. And I was feeling so much of it on that first day that I thought something might be wrong with me because I had never felt that before. It was like a foreign feeling. So then that feeling continued on day 2, day 3, day 4. I was just so high, guys. I can't explain to you how high. And I had so much energy. I'm just eating fruits at this point, mind you. Fruits and maybe a bit of almond butter or peanut butter here and there, but just straight up fruits had me feeling like I could run a marathon. And I'm not someone who generally has energy like that. In fact, I was someone who was regularly taking like midday naps that could sometimes last like 3 hours at a time. Like, I really had no solid, stable, dependable energy from within myself. But as soon as I started on this fast and was primarily eating fruits, when I tell you, I could just keep going. Like, things that used to tire me out, I just wasn't tired. My mental clarity was next level. I had energy for days. Like, I don't think I was sleeping as much as usual either. I think I've made my point. But the thing is, like I said, it was just the psychology of it was that I kept questioning my sanity. I kept asking myself, is this normal? Am I supposed to feel this? Am I manic? You know, this world like demonizes natural, sober, endogenous heightened states. This world really doesn't know how to recognize life. when it sees it. So life is pathologized. Oh, you're high because you've just been eating a bunch of fruits? Like, consider that you might actually be sick somehow. Anyway, but it did get to me. I definitely internally was questioning myself, and so when Thanksgiving rolled around, I decided to take myself up on the offer to have legumes if I ever needed to. I made a legume-based dish for Thanksgiving with a bunch of herbs, and I couldn't have garlic and onion. I forgot to mention this. So I had to, whenever I did have something savory, I had to figure out a way to cook it and make it flavorful without those things I'd always depended on for flavor. So I ended up getting really creative with cooking, and I made this like no curry. It was just chickpeas, some like tomato-based, coconut milky based curry, and a lentil wrap. And I had that and some like cranberry chutney, just like everything else was like fruits. And as soon as I had it, I felt grounded again. Like that high feeling went away and I felt grounded in my body, and it was a familiar space. So I didn't feel bad and I didn't feel too heavy or too dense or anything like that, but it definitely clearly brought me down. So I continued to regularly eat lentils, and then I realized, wait, like I'm not even really hungry. Sometimes I'm just eating out of habit. So like I don't know exactly when it happened, but at some point on this fast, I didn't have a raging appetite anymore. In fact, I don't think I really had an appetite at all. When I experienced hunger, it felt purely psychological. Like, oh, it's 1 o'clock and I haven't eaten lunch yet, I should eat. Or, oh, it's 7 p.m., I should eat. I wasn't actually physically hungry. So I had all this energy, I felt so high, and I had no hunger, and yet I would eat just because I thought I had to. So I generally didn't really feel temptation. I missed the mouthfeel of certain foods, like, I don't know, vegan mac and cheese or some like comfort foods. I missed like the crispiness of hash browns because I couldn't have potatoes now. But it was more like I mentally desired them, not physically desired them. So I can't say I really truly felt tempted until my period. So truthfully, I felt blindsided by the effect of my period. I've done a lot of healing in regards to my relationship with my womb. So my periods are not as bad as they used to be. So I was really shocked when my period hit hard. Like, I had to call out of work, and I haven't done that in a while. And I was surprised by this because I have experienced fasting and juicing and stuff like that, and on the months where I'm primarily juicing, my period is really light and there's not much pain. So I was so shocked that after like 3 weeks of mostly eating fruits that my period would hit so hard. And it did start to breach my consciousness that the pain wasn't a physical, like it wasn't coming from the physical world. There was an emotional pain coming forward asking to be processed. But frankly, I didn't want to face it. So it was on the day of my period that I decided to have an egg sandwich and see what would happen. Because the point of this fast actually really wasn't to be perfect and to be pure, but really to actively, regularly, routinely confront in every decision I make every day what death is and how much I don't actually need to depend on killing or the death of things to sustain my own life, to sustain my own consciousness. So I decided to very consciously make an egg sandwich for myself and really pay attention to how it made me feel and see what would happen. So I did that, and frankly, I didn't feel good. Like, I didn't feel bad either, but the egg sandwich didn't have the effect that I guess I was hoping for it to have. I think there was an element of me that was motivated to try to shut my womb up and make her just stop complaining about whatever emotional thing she wanted me to look at. Not my wisest, most mature spiritual choice, but that I'm just telling you plainly, like, this was one of the moments in this 40-day experience where I was confronted by the part of me that wants to consume so that I don't have to find the energy within myself to overcome a problem. So from observing my inner world after eating that egg sandwich and realizing that I was motivated by a desire to make my pain something someone else had to pay for, right? To make my suffering someone else's suffering, I became aware of how much of my eating really is just that. so much of eating is emotional. Fasting in general will confront you with how much you eat to not feel something else. How much you feel hunger because actually you're sad, or actually you're angry, or actually you're frustrated, and it actually has nothing to do with like physiological processes of like needing calories or needing energy or whatever. And then the next time I felt temptation was when I got the flu. Now this was wild. This flu was not just any flu. I was having visions. I was having shamanic visions. I was slipping in and out of this reality, okay? Because like after that egg sandwich, it was like so heavy in my stomach and I didn't feel all that great after eating it. I decided I wanted to go back to like primarily fruits. So now I'm eating fruits again, and now I'm back to feeling super high like I did on day one. I was so high. And then the flu hit, which sounds counterintuitive, like, oh, if you felt so great and so healthy and happy and energized, why did you get sick? I'm telling you, this was not a normal sickness. I didn't feel weak or depleted. It was more like, I mean, genuinely, it felt like my body was rebirthing itself through incinerating old cells. It's like I could feel what a fever actually is metaphysically. I was being put through a crucible by my own body. My own body was like, all right, time to regenerate a bunch of cells all at once. And I was like, okay, I trust the process. So I stayed in bed 2 days straight. I think I slept for 24 of those 48 hours. And my poor cat, Jupiter, she... At like the first 2 hours when I wouldn't get out of bed that day, she was like harassing me, like, come on, get out of bed. But then I think she figured out that I really needed to rest, so she stayed really close by that whole time. My darling sweetheart was my little nurse. So I was having visions. So I'm in bed, wrapped up in a blanket burrito to make myself sweat more, and I'm just like laying there, and I don't take medication for anything. I don't think I've taken medicine, even herbal anything, for anything in like maybe 2 years or something. I've really adopted this belief that like the body can always heal itself and doesn't need medicine, and I'll save that for a sermon too. So I didn't take anything, and my mom was really concerned. She came in and was like feeling my forehead, and she was like, I think maybe you should stop this fast you're doing. I was like, no mom, you don't understand. The fast is making me heal faster. Like, I am healing, I am being reborn right now. So then the vision started. I was literally in bed, like literally feeling my consciousness go in and out of different dimensions that I was not aware of before. So there was this dimension of like awakened beings, and I could feel myself starting to like join them. I don't know how to explain this. I was not entirely in this world, let's put it that way. I was like straddling worlds, and at some point I had a fever dream. Now, I've never had a fever dream in my life. I've heard people talk about fever dreams and like they sound so cool, but I actually had one. And what happened was I was laying there, and it was maybe 2 a.m. and I felt that realm of awakened beings open up like a portal, and I felt them calling me. I heard them saying, wake up, wake up, wake up. But not wake up like wake up physically out of slumber. It was like wake up into the next higher, more lucid state of consciousness where you know that the world is an illusion. And I actually fought them. I was like resisting, and I was like, no, I'm not ready to leave the illusion. I'm not ready to wake up. I actually really felt like I was being invited to wake up, and I knew that if I woke up in a spiritual sense, there's no coming back. And I wasn't ready. I'm not gonna lie to you, I wasn't ready. And it's like I forgot that I was fasting for the purpose of like starting a church. And my very human side, who's in love with the illusion of the world, wasn't fully ready to let go of it yet. So I wonder what would have happened if I had like done it, if I had woken up. But I did feel like my consciousness was flickering in this place of like, this is all a dream. And I was shown at some point, my higher self started showing me the vibrational anatomy of the universe, and I was shown what a particle is, what a wavelength is, and the difference between shorter wavelengths and longer wavelengths, and the significance of the shape of the wavelength and how it travels through space and carries information. And I was shown all these things rapid fire, and it was truly like I had accessed some higher consciousness. And after I received that specific vision of like how vibrations work, I immediately put it to the test and used what I was shown in that vision to manifest a gold bracelet in less than an hour, which I will make the next video about. Okay, so that flu only lasted like 48 hours, and then I was good. The only thing that stayed was like the congestion in my nose, but again, I went right back into having so much energy, being so mentally clear. I felt so good. Then there wasn't much time left in the fast. In the last 3 days of the fast, I did start introducing rice and bread into my life on the grounds that they theoretically don't have to die for you to eat them. And again, I wanted to like see how it would feel to transition into having those things again. I had rice and beans, nothing crazy, but the next day I had diarrhea. I had the runs. It was so embarrassing. I was at work, and when I realized I had diarrhea, I was like, come on, it's just rice. Like, don't people eat rice to make diarrhea stop? Because it like is easy to digest, but somehow rice gave me diarrhea, and I don't know what that's about, but whatever. So yeah, I actually am kind of sitting here in shock. Like, I thought at the end of this 40-day fast I'd have some struggle story to tell you, like, oh, it was so intense and so hard and the devil tempted me, but like, no, it was honestly, it felt easy. I forgot I was fasting a lot because, like I said, I genuinely wasn't feeling hunger. I had so much energy that I wasn't thinking of food. I wasn't thinking, oh, I need to eat. Where's my next meal coming from? My mind was so not on hunger or food. Paradoxically, I forgot I was fasting, and I forgot why I originally started the fast, which was to meditate on what death is and what life feels like. So I guess you could say I effectively entered a state of being that was so lively and so alive that I accomplished what I set out to do, which was to viscerally experience the genius of God's original design for humanity, which was a deathless utopia, which we call the Garden of Eden. So I experienced it firsthand, not in theory, not by watching other people's YouTube videos, but actually I went in and I did it. It actually felt so good that when I did break my fast yesterday evening, I had Taco Bell, which I know sounds insane, but I was mostly curious to see how my body would handle garlic, onion, and potatoes all at once after not having them for 40 days. And it was exactly what I'd been wanting in terms of a mouthfeel, because there's only so many textures you get from like fruits. But then within 5 minutes of eating it, I started feeling all sorts of weird things that I hadn't felt before. I got a crunch wrap with black beans and potatoes in it. As far as fast food goes, it's pretty clean, I guess, maybe? And I'm not just telling myself that. I really thought this would be like a fairly clean thing to eat. But man, 5 minutes after eating it, my whole body felt inflamed and mucusy. Like, I started getting acid reflux, and my stomach was like, what is this? Like, my whole body was like, ew. Like, I felt greasy and heavy inside, and it was not pleasant. I was like, is this how my body has always reacted to Taco Bell? And maybe this is the first time I'm feeling it because I'm not desensitized now. But maybe I've always felt that way after eating even clean fast food. I will say that one of the biggest challenges on this fast was the lack of variety, because I love fruits and I've always wanted to be a fruitarian. But when you are getting all your fruits from a conventional grocery store, I mean, maybe there's like 20 or 30 types of fruits to choose from, but some of them are really expensive, so really you only have like 5 to choose from consistently. And I got really bored with eating the same fruits over and over again. The other challenge was it was costly. Now, this wasn't a typical fast where you're reducing the amount of calories you eat, although if I were to estimate how many calories I actually ate in a day, it might be anywhere from like 800 to 1300 calories a day. I definitely wasn't meeting minimum caloric requirements as put forward by, the big industries that profit from people being consumptive. So why would I take them seriously in the first place. It's just that even for that lower amount of caloric intake, the amount I was spending was like twice as much as I might spend on a typical month of vegan or vegetarian food. Fruits can get very pricey very fast. So, but yeah, again, this wasn't really like a diet that I'm trying to promote or anything. This was about the inner journey. And what I really came away with was visceral, embodied, experiential knowledge of how life feels when it is unencumbered by the energy or anti-energy, antimatter of death. It's something you have to feel for yourself. And of course, the truly deathless diet is the pranic way of living, where you are not consuming at all, even fruits. But one of the visions I had along the 40-day path was I was shown by God the genius of the design of humans being frugivores. So again, all of these things I keep mentioning, like manifesting real gold and how we're supposed to be fruitarians, like these are all going to be other videos which are coming. So of course, subscribe and stay tuned. I should say. Somebody asked me if I had meal plans, and honestly, no. I was mostly mono-mealing, so when I would eat fruits, it might be like 5 or 6 bananas at once, either in the form of a smoothie or just eating them one at a time, or a bunch of apples, and I might add like peanut butter and some straight up cocoa chocolate chips to the apples to make it exciting. But like I said, my focus naturally gravitated upwards away from my stomach and onto higher things, so I feel like I was constantly talking to God. And when you're in that state, you're just not thinking of food. Like, I started off by trying to be creative with my recipes and stuff and make like fruit bowls and smoothie bowls, and then at some point I just stopped caring because I wasn't deprived. Like, there was no need to try to make food exciting. It just had no appeal anyway, so what would be the point of that, you know? So I've just had my second meal since this fast ended. I had some soy-based chicken and rice and broccoli at one of my favorite restaurants, and it, again, I don't feel good. My stomach feels so strange right now. It's like, what is this grease and breading and oil and salt and all these things? Like, there is no denying anymore that I felt far superior on a fruitarian way of eating. And like, someone could argue that it's about macronutrients and carbohydrates and glucose, and they could break it down to its material components, sure. But I don't think... what I'm learning about food is that it is so not physical. I mean, nothing in this world is, right? Like, not the idea that things are physical at, like, first, and then there's a spiritual component is like such a misunderstanding. Everything originates in the mental plane and the spiritual plane and the unseen realm, whatever. And the physical world is an emanation. So when you're eating something that is a ball of seeds, it's just full of pure potential, that metaphysically, of course, is going to feel way more enlivening than eating the muscle tissue of a being who used to run free in the forest. You can try to make it make sense with physical terms all you want, like iron and copper and zinc and calories and whatever, but it's so not about that. It's so not about that. I mean it. Like, once you've tasted the food God gives you straight from heaven, that straight up light that I was drinking from day one onward, you realize how silly it is to get so caught up in like dietary ideologies like veganism and carnivorism. Like I said, there's only so much I can convey in words, and the rest you have to really want it and you have to really pursue it. And that is what I am doing. I feel great after the 40 days. In fact, I want to make fruits my primary food from this moment forward until I find the courage in myself to graduate to being liquid, and then from there to being fully pranic. So I am on the journey, I am on the path, I am making strides, and I feel good, and that's the takeaway. I think I just want to end on a note of like, if you've been feeling the call to experiment with being more pranic, to fast as a means of connecting with God, and fast to amplify prayers and to amplify manifestations, like, do it. Do it. You learn from doing and from experiencing, not just from staying in your head theorizing about it, okay? Okay, that's it. That's it. I love you. I love you so much. So much. Thank you for listening.